I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of El Salvador to introduce an address by the head of state.
Mr. President, good afternoon. I have the honor to introduce the pre-recorded statement by the President of the Republic of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, at this 75th General Assembly session of this organization. Thank you.
Un saludo a todos los pueblos.
Greetings to all peoples of the world, and I express solidarity to everyone at this pivotal moment in history, the most difficult we have ever experienced. More than 1 million people have died in this pandemic, and millions of dreams have been dashed, and millions of people have lost loved ones, and lives have changed forever. We must continue to work for them and make sure that the numbers do not increase much more. I pray that God makes it so, and this prayer is for everyone. This turning point for mankind means that our responsibility is greater than usual. The fate of generations depends on what we do or do not do in the coming days. But here we are at the 75th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations in the General Assembly. This is one of the greatest ideas of mankind. Thank you to everyone who is listening to me, because you could have been doing something else with your time, which is so precious and increasingly limited. Particular thanks is extended to Salvadorans inside and outside our country for allowing me to be here and to work for them, and thanks primarily to God, from whom all things come. A year ago, I said at this General Assembly that there was an urgent need to change the format, and if we did not do so, this Assembly would become irrelevant. The General Assembly has changed its format, not much, but it has changed, forced to do so as a result of a historic pandemic. But what are the results of this change? The Assembly has become even more irrelevant. This year it has become so irrelevant that no one even discusses how irrelevant it is. For the vast majority of the world's people, it's as if it never existed. Not only will most people never see or hear these statements, but some don't even know that the Assembly exists, and depending on their age, never knew it existed. To prove my point, I asked in recent days a number of people about the General Assembly. I spoke to people from all walks of life, all ages. The majority of them didn't even know the Assembly was in session, and the remainder did not know what the Assembly was or what would be discussed. If you don't believe me, try it yourself. Ask the first person you see after listening to my statement. And I say this by way of self-criticism, and as the President of El Salvador, I am part of the General Assembly, and as a human being, I firmly believe in the potential for good of this instrument. But as I warned last year, the world is changing, and changing at a faster pace. If you do not change, you risk becoming obsolete. Today, the world is very different from the world just a few years ago. There's never been a time in recorded history where society has changed and continues to change in such a short period. And what have we done in the General Assembly? We submitted pre-recorded statements. That's it. And only because of the pandemic, a reactive change rather than a bold change towards the future we want. This change on its own is not sufficient. The world will continue to change whether we do or not. For some people, these words may seem harsh, but it's because of my deep respect for the founding principles of the UN and of this Assembly that I say them. I want to change the Assembly so that it survives. I want it to change so that as mankind we can use this great tool. I want it to change so that altogether we can have a hand in changing the world, in the common destiny of mankind, and not just in the General Assembly, which is at risk of becoming irrelevant. As this year comes to a close, we are all suffering from the impact of one of the greatest crises in modern history. And what have we done as the United Nations? Once again, I ask you to do what I've suggested. Ask the first person you see, what has the United Nations done during the pandemic? There has been international aid, of course. And it's at this point that I'd like to thank the countries and the organizations who have helped us and continue to help us to survive this crisis. Thanks to the government and the people of the United States, who helped us set up a healthcare system with 31 intensive care units and turn them into multifunctional units by sending us 600 ventilators at a time. They were in short supply, thanks to the state and people of Japan, without whose assistance we would never have been able to build the largest hospital in the region and one of the most advanced and greatest hospitals combating COVID worldwide. My eternal thanks and my enormous admiration to the great people of Japan and their government, an exemplary society for our world. Thanks as well to the countries, organizations, private enterprises, and volunteers throughout the world who have helped us and continue to help us. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you on my behalf and on behalf of the people of El Salvador. All of this aid has enabled us and will continue to enable us to save thousands of lives, not just during this pandemic, but in the years to come. Every life that we have saved and that we will continue to save will be saved generations. Hundreds of thousands of lives in history will exist thanks to what we've done at this point in time. I thank God for giving us this opportunity, and thank you to everyone who has helped us. But this assistance is primarily bilateral and not necessarily thanks to the UN system, despite the fact that it was created for just such a purpose, these existential moments in time for mankind. There's been a lack of leadership by this organization to bring the world together and to tackle this virus head on, but it's not worth regretting the past. We must see this as an opportunity, as a warning sign to prepare us before we are hit by a similar or worse threat. We must prepare for the next global threat. We must take this singular opportunity at this point in time to build and craft our future. When I was a child, and I believe that was not so long ago, we thought about the future and our minds would reel from the possibilities. Flying cars, humans devoted to the arts and to humanities, robots doing the work people don't want to do. The world we imagined, and I'm speaking in the plural, was the future of our collective conscience. It was a multicultural world, a world where there were no wars, where we used our might to explore the stars and expand the scope of mankind. What do young people think about when they think about the future now? Natural disasters, pandemics, wars, apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic scenes, dystopian societies. And if you don't believe me, try the exercise I suggested and go out and ask the first young person you see, what do you think about when you think about the future of planet Earth? But in some aspects, we are living in the future that we imagined as children. Technology has reached levels that even the most ambitious dreamers couldn't imagine. Many of you are listening to me on a supercomputer that you have in your pockets. Any smartphone today has millions of times more computational power than the supercomputers that sent us to the moon. The latest iPhone is by far more powerful than the supercomputers of the 70s, 80s, or 90s. And not just that, there are billions of these supercomputers throughout the world, and they are interconnected by the greatest network in the history of mankind. A year ago, I said so at this General Assembly, the potential of this network was so great, and since then this network has become even greater, even more powerful, and it will be even more powerful next year. As humanity, I believe that we haven't fully understood the potential of this network, the potential of all of these tools available to us thanks to this network. The potential we have as individuals and collectively. Never in the history of mankind have we had so many opportunities to do what we want, to be honest with ourselves, create the world we want. This network has connected us instantly with the greatest minds of the world, anywhere in the world. This network has enabled us to connect with people who have the same interests, same aspirations, same concept of the world. And I'm speaking just from an individual experience. Imagine what we could do collectively. There are so many ills in this world, and if millions of us have this supercomputer in our pockets, the problems are still remaining, and yet these historic problems could be resolved. Issues like hunger, lack of housing, death due to curable diseases. All of these problems are relatively easy to solve together. If the entire world were determined to solve each one of them, it would take a matter of months or even less. This capacity to change the world is something that we have tried on a limited basis in recent months, and yet the results have been incredible, both globally and locally. Globally, we see the results in the race to find a vaccine and global cooperation to treat the virus. And here I would like to express very warm thanks to the Italian medical community whose studies provided the initial protocol that saved thousands of lives in El Salvador. Not in the world, but it has helped save loved ones. Thanks to God as well that we've been able to do this so quickly and faster than we thought. Thanks to God that this trend will continue and will make El Salvador one of the safest places in the continent. Locally, we have seen El Salvador change an inhuman and often precarious healthcare system into something that is becoming a first world system. Much remains to be done, but we are achieving this goal. Every day that passes, when we do not begin to work together to resolve the problems of the world and mankind, lives will be lost, opportunities will be lost forever. In El Salvador, we are doing our utmost, and we are tidying house and taking care of problems along the way. Thanks to God, we have excellent results with the assistance of friendly countries. We've drastically reduced our insecurity indicators, murders, extortion, theft. We've saved, on average, 9 lives a day. 9 families do not need to mourn the loss of a loved one. Thanks to God, we are doing this faster than we thought. We have much that remains to be done. But if we use this tool that mankind has created, we can help speed up the process. This is something developed countries have had to go through as well. But we are doing our utmost. We are working to design and build a new country. Our idea is to begin to build a model society for the world, as many societies have done, each with their own specificities. We want people, thinkers and designers and doers to be part of this world and to help design and build a country to work with us to create the Salvadoran miracle. This is a country where we have political will to take that leap that is so necessary here in the General Assembly. You will find a ready and willing government with people who want to look to the future, to build their own future. And in addition to that, we have good weather and fair winds all year round. We want to make our contribution to mankind. We are a country under construction, and it's very moving to be part of. We want to speed up this process because we want pioneers of the world to help us in this public and private enterprise. In a world which is almost completely connected, I can say a few words here and be heard in the far corners of the world, and people will respond, cooperate, and create. We have the tools to put mankind a little closer in the right direction. We have the genius of human imagination. That's what distinguishes us from other species. The human species can live for thousands of years and always have something else to invent. The possibilities of knowing where we are going are infinite. But we must take control of our destiny. Mankind must find its way. And that is the task for these pioneers, to have the awareness and the courage to shape our future. If we work together, we will be able to be the architects of one of the golden ages in the history of mankind. May God light the way for us and help us build this future together as brothers. Thank you.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of El Salvador for the statement just made.